So your carpentry. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to everyone here and online. Hello, Karen.
Good evening.
You hear us all right?
Yeah, I can hear you pretty well.
Is this better?
We'll just go with what we have.
All right. So tonight we are meeting to discuss this program for the small city development, our application with Sunchar on some funding for possible funding for some of our housing in Pine Island. And Elizabeth, do you want to go ahead and do you need to explain anything, or do we?
I don't think so. I think we just can
Open the public hearing. Do we have to have a motion for that?
I'll move to open the public hearing.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? There we go. Motion carries. We are open for public hearing. Anyone from the public want to speak? Not a whole lot here right now. So, you want to move right into Karen's explanation?
Sure.
All right, Karen, we'll open it up for you to present.
Okay, thank you. So just a recap on what this program, how this program works and what the benefit is to the residents of Pine Island. One thing I failed to include in the packet that when I sent is the target area map. Is there a way I could share my screen?
There is. Courtney will figure that out here.
Okay, so this program is to benefit low to moderate income households. Those 80% of the county median income and below. And in your packets, an informational flyer. So those are the income limits set for BIPOD for 2020, and they change annually. The 2021 limits are not out yet. So in order to even be eligible for this program, households have to be at or below those income limits. And then there's the 30% AMI and 50% AMI, and we use those thresholds to determine what the owner's match would be. So if they're at the 30%, they're at what is classified as extremely low income, and those are typically elderly households that are on a fixed income, like Social Security, where they would not have an owner's match required and would be eligible for up to $25,000 in a form of a deferred loan. And then at the 50% rate, the household would have to have 4% match. And then if they're above the 50 but below the 80, then they would have a 10% match. And that comes from the owner's funds. And Sunchar also has the ability to do a low interest loan from our resources to help them out if they don't have sufficient funds. And we're doing necessary improvements to the home. So if they want new flooring or new cabinets, we're not doing that unless there's a health and safety, like a tripping hazard, or they don't have proper food preparation area. They have to be current on their taxes, and they have to have adequate insurance to cover the loan as well. And then this is the financing from the Small Cities Development Program is the form of a 10-year deferred loan. So if they aren't the owner and resident of that property we rehab for 10 full years, the loan has to be repaid. So in the first 6 years, they have to pay 100% back. If at the end of the 6th year, it starts deferring down by 20%. So we have had where people own the home, but they then rent it out, and that that is a repayment. So it's really important that own and use it as their primary residence. And then any monies repaid would go back into a pot just for Pine Island, and then they can be revolved out. So can you see the target area map?
Yeah.
Okay. This green box, kind of, that was where we did a paper survey and we did a windshield survey. So that area was the highest level of interest and need based on the windshield survey and the paper survey. We are writing this grant so that funds are spent in that target area for the first 15 to 16 months, that those property owners have the first chance to use those funds in that area. If there are funds remaining after that area, or after that, after the first 15 to 16 months after the grant effective date, then it can go citywide and anybody could benefit at that point. So we didn't have to have a target area, but with the size of Pine Island, I felt in the level of interest in that area, I felt it was, in order to make this grant more competitive, it's all about competitiveness and what we can do to get the funds here. I wanted to have a targeted area and then go citywide after a certain, there's 37 households interested in that target area. So, and we're only applying for 22 homes. So that's why that decision was made. Are there any questions on the program guidelines or requirements?
I guess just to clarify for anyone that might be listening, does this have any kind of financial risk to the city per se? If these people fail to pay back this loan, or how does that money get recouped?
I didn't hear the last part of that, I'm sorry.
So if a homeowner were to fail to repay this back in that 10-year time frame, is there any financial risk to the city with the program?
So there really isn't a financial risk to the city because the city is not anticipating getting those funds back.
Okay.
However, as your administrator for this grant, we would take care of collecting on that. So in the situation where somebody owns it, but they rent it, they don't live there, they're in default and there isn't really the asset to sell to pay off their loan. We would take care of, in that situation, we typically do some sort of repayment agreement if they can't pay the full amount off. So we track those loans, we do the loan servicing on behalf of the city for that. So I hope that answers your question.
If they sell the property, like let's say they sell the house in 4 years after they've spent money and rehabbed it, does it become a lien that's got to be satisfied at the sale of the house, or how does that work?
Correct. So once a rehab is completed and we know their final amount of their loan, because there may be change orders during construction, once the rehab is complete, we do file a lien against their property, and usually that is found during title work if they sell. So when through the sale of the house, the proceeds would pay off the debt.
Just one more question, and maybe you'll get to this. I had thought at the onset of this program, there was also a component for business properties. Is any part of this for businesses?
So we did survey the businesses, but there wasn't a strong demand there. So we did not include the businesses as part of this grant program because we didn't want to jeopardize the housing aspect. You can't just apply for the commercial rehab portion. You have to have the housing component with that. And with the commercial being not as competitive, we decided to leave that out of this application.
If I can just ask one more question, kind of dovetailing onto what Councilman Hildebrand was asking. So who is the lien holder in that case? Semskra?
Nope, it is the city of Pine Island that would be the lien holder, but what we've done on other grants is that we have an administrative contract. So there's an administrative contract for the 3-year grant period, and then we do an administrative contract for the following, what we call post-grant. So after the grant's closed out, we take care of servicing those loans on the city's behalf. And then usually with title, we provide a copy of that agreement, but they are in the city of Pine Island's name.
So
So
then
it is the
essentially,
city of Pine Island's funds. So any repayments would be tracked for Pine Island only.
so essentially then the city is taking at least possibly a second, if not a third position on a home. If there was a situation where there was a distressed property, i.e. foreclosure, the city would be second or third in line for satisfaction in that case, correct?
That is correct. We
So then
do,
we would technically not have access to, let's say, $25,000 that we are holding a lien against on ABC property.
could you repeat this last part of that? I'm sorry.
So essentially, let's say there's a $25,000 loan that is on a property, and if Pine Island is the third position lien holder, if that property goes to foreclosure, how do we recoup that $25,000?
Typically, historically, we haven't been able to recoup on the foreclosure. It essentially just goes away, and the grant is paying for the grant has upfronted the construction, and so I understand that you're losing on that repayment though.
Okay, so I just was looking for clarification on that. If Pine Island is indeed the lien holder, if it's a $25,000 loan, that's $25,000 that if that goes to default, we would not recoup for our purposes and for our taxpayers.
Correct. We do go through a process of vetting out that that the homeowner doesn't have greater debts than what their income is. So we go through a process of that. They do have to be current on their mortgage. So when we verify a file, there are things that we have to go through, and we do that out. So we have not, I would say in the 10 years I've been running this department, I haven't had a foreclosure.
Okay.
So
Good.
not saying couldn't happen, but we do go through a process of vetting out that they aren't behind on their mortgage, and they can't have a judgment, so that's not a risk either. If they have a judgment, that's an automatic denial.
Okay.
Elizabeth, you're comfortable with our financial exposure here?
Yeah, and just to clarify, it would be the grant dollars that would be out, it wouldn't be tax levy dollars.
Right.
It's not like we are loaning out city of Pine Island money that we levy against the tax holders, it would be money that we received through this grant.
So when that money is paid back, where does that, so that doesn't really go to the city of Pine Island, then that goes back to Semskra, even though we are holding the lien?
So we collect the money, but we track it. What we've done is we track it for Pine Island separately. And then once we have sufficient funds, we revolve it back out so that the money is used for another community development purpose, which could include commercial rehab at that point.
They grant us the money to then administer loans out.
So it's not like a one and done deal.
Yeah.
So as it comes back, it can be reinvested in the community. Okay. That clarifies and kind of closes the loop on our exposure then. Thank you.
Any other questions, council, or Karen, do you have anything else that you wanted to add or explain?
Any other questions on the requirements, guidelines?
Since we didn't see the target map, do you want to just quickly explain what areas of town have the
So
most interest?
I apologize. I can email that over if you guys would like to see that.
If you look in your
I
chat,
apologize for that, but it is on the southern end of town. From like 3rd Street down to 8th Street, and then west and east of South Main Street.
So, so only those south, so nothing on the north end is eligible? You mean nobody on the north end is eligible to apply?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
So this target area, only houses in that target area can apply for this program, is that right?
For the first 15 to 16 months after the grant effective date, so from the grant effective date, which will be sometime likely in May if we are funded, through for 15 months after, those funds can only be used in the target area. If there's funds remaining after that time, they can be used anywhere in the city limits.
Thank you. I heard that. Sometimes it takes me twice.
Cool, thank you.
Any other questions?
And then I just wanted to review the budget. So we are applying for 22 homes to be rehabbed, and we're requesting a total of $594,550 from the Small Cities Development Program. For housing rehab, the limit is $600,000 that we can apply for. So we're trying to maximize as much as we can to get the funding to Pine Island. So
Right.
as part of your packet tonight, there's we're requesting approval of the local government resolution, which is a requirement for the full application. The citizen participation plan, which includes, it's a requirement that we've held the public hearing, we've done the publication in the city's official newspaper. And then for the mayor to sign the conflict of interest disclosure form and the 2 signature pages for the application.
I'll move to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving on to resolution 2111, approving the grant agreement.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second for resolution 2111. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. To item C, approval of the citizen participation plan.
I'll move approval of the citizen participation plan.
I have a motion, is there a second? Okay, Karen, are you able to explain the citizen participation plan?
So that is a document that it is a requirement of the full application, and it just basically we're required to hold a public hearing for the full application, and it's just a document stating that formal notice has been provided to the news record and published, and any information or public information requests can be directed to our office. We have to give citizens an opportunity to comment on the full application.
Well, it sounds like, I think this is going to be an exciting project, and if not only to help with, upkeep on some of these homes and the beautification parts of it, providing those resources to those citizens that are looking to have that financial opportunity. I think this is going to be something really exciting, and I appreciate your work on that.
Thank you. I just want to share with you, just so you guys understand kind of impact. I don't get too emotional about some of the projects that we worked on, but I had a resident of Pine Island after the last council meeting call me the next day. I don't know how they heard about it, but she was interested in the program, and she's on a fixed income, has had medical issues, and after I got done explaining the program to me, she was in tears, and she had me in tears because she just didn't know how she was going to take care of her home because she's on a fixed income. So I'm excited about this project, just from that aspect, and having that kind of conversation with a resident. So
Are we able to be updated, or is there information ongoing about like what kind of, I suppose there's some privacy stuff, but like what kind of projects we're working on?
Yep, I can provide, there are certain requirements in terms of privacy. We can't provide income data, but we can provide addresses. And in another community that I worked on at, with the same program, we did a summary of just the address and then what improvements were done to it. And that seemed like a good tool to just update the council on. So that's something we can do as we go through the process. And as we go through this grant, if it's funded, that we will have to have a second public hearing, because that is a second requirement, another requirement of the grant process.
Well, thank you very much, Karen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, council, we have a motion and a second on item C. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. And I will take a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.